Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as appears to be our wont at Scrutiny, we always seem to start 2 or 3 minutes late, but my apologies for that. Well, today we have a piece largely about engagement with younger people, and so without any further ado, I'm not going to start the formal agenda. If we go directly to item 6 on the agenda, I will deal with the other items, I do promise you, later on tonight. But my Vice Chairman, Councillor Gareth Anderson, is going to facilitate this item. So with no further ado, Councillor Anderson, the floor is yours.
Chairman, thank you very much indeed. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It was felt, I think, by quite a few members, particularly those of us who serve on the Education and Children's Policy Development Board, like the Chairman and I do in discussion, that the Council lacked a way for our young people to get involved in what we did and to make a meaningful impact into the work that the Council does. And so I felt that this would be a good piece of work for us to start on, to look at all the details, the ramifications of it, get schools involved, see what was already happening in the area and see where we could go from here. Because if we're to really connect with all of our communities, those people who can't vote and yet rely on so many of our services in particular need some way of really getting involved. So hence the reason we've organised tonight. If I can give members and those who are here tonight just a very brief outline of where we've been, and then we'll go straight to our visitors who are come to present things to us. I know have to go off somewhere fairly quickly. With great help from Penny and her team, we wrote to, after we eventually found the names of the heads of citizenship at the schools in the borough, of which I am one but in a neighbouring borough, we wrote to them all and received a nil response to start with, followed by another letter and some phone calls, and we received a number of emails at that point. So we've had a minimal response so far from schools when we asked them what was going on, what they'd be interested in. However, those who did respond, in particular from the likes of the Oakland School, have come back with some excellent ideas about what they would be interested in doing and how they would like to see their students get involved. So their ideas have been thrown into play here tonight. We've also got, in your papers, a series of information about what already happens across the borough and across the old county of Cheshire, what happens elsewhere in the country, and different ideas and potential things that we could look at to build on, various different ways to engage our young people in what happens in Cheshire, West and Chester. And I think it's worth pointing out two things before I pass on over. First is, this is just the very, very start of a process. This is us finding out what's happening, seeing what people might like, and then working on from there. So this is just the very start of what we're doing. And secondly, I think it's important to note that certainly what I think most members want is meaningful engagement. Because there is no point of setting up some form of structure where we just allow our young people to come along to some form of meeting, say a few things, they go away again, and we think we've ticked a box for a year. The last thing this should be is a tick box exercise, and that is, after all, something I think we on Overview and Scrutiny have been quite critical of in the past. It's got to be meaningful, it's got to matter, and hopefully that might help bring on the next generation of members of this council. So that's where we are now. If I can move over to those people who are in part responsible, we've got colleagues here from the Children's Service of the Borough and from Connections. So if we can start on the left, if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Hello everybody, my name's Angela Stedman and I'm the Parent and Child Involvement Strategy Manager. It's a new position I've only just taken up a couple of weeks ago.
And I'm Neil Massingham. I'm the Senior Manager for Strategic Commissioning in Children's Services, focusing on all universal services and some targeted services, which covers everything from play strategy, child property strategy, children's centres, schools, integrated youth support services, and it includes participation, but also some specific issues such as teenage pregnancy and needs.
I'm Steve Hoy, the Chief Executive of the Connections Service, which is a company owned by the 3 local authorities of Cheshire West and Chester, Cheshire East and Warrington. And my role is to put together, on your behalf, a strategy for working with 13 to 19-year-olds in terms of enabling them to make positive transitions. And one of the key cornerstones of that activity is to engage young people to participate, to be involved in decisions, design, quality assurance, as well as encouraging participation in activities to do with democracy.
I'm Ron Davis. I'm a participation worker for Connections, covering Cheshire, West and Chester. and my role is with UK Youth Parliament and devising ways of confirming young people's desires and commitment to participation and active involvement. So we've had young people involved with scrutiny committees, and we've had young people meeting portfolio holders, and we're at the moment creating the structure, hopefully, which will enable young people right across the authorities area to play an active role.
In relation to my role as a Strategic Commissioner, and bearing in mind I'm fairly new into my position as well, I think the approach we've taken is actually to spend some time analysing where we are, and I think we're probably at the same stage as you in working out what's going on. There is actually some literature out there. There was a big mapping study done in 2005, which I would be happy to send on to you, and you can have a look at what those conclusions were. It's a long report. I have it in front of me, but I don't think what we want to do is recommission something that's already out there. I think we should look at what's been done before, learn from it, and see what else we need to do in order to develop an action plan. In terms of how we move forward, we commission Connections, and they are our prime agency for doing engagement with young people between 13 and 19, but we need to develop consultation engagement with young people that's age appropriate, and that goes right down to preschool, which is quite a specialised area. I mean, I have an 8-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I communicate with and engage with both of those, but on different ways. You know, and I'm by no means a specialist in engagement with children and young people at all, so I am learning on this, and I would be keen to learn with you and develop a strategy that we all own. The only bit of consultation that we, as a directorate, or Angela, are currently undertaking is a small pilot questionnaire, which is going to go into secondary schools, a few secondary schools, subject to the approval of the Cheshire West Association of Secondary Head Teachers today, which is about part of our annual review of Connections, and which is taking the views of 13 to 19-year-olds about the services they receive for Connections to youth services, and what their priorities will be from that service. Now, that survey is going to be conducted with Year 11s in about 4 secondary schools before Christmas. It's been done through our Research and Intelligence Unit, and I'll be happy to share the results with you, as we will share them with the company, and they will help us understand where we are now. In terms of the issue of the setting up the Youth Parliament and the Senate, I think that's something I'd allow Connections to speak about, as it's their job to do that. They are commissioned to run that, and it's not something that I would want to step on their toes about as such, not least because I'm not as well informed about it as them. I think I've probably spoken enough as an introduction, so I'll hand over to Connections unless you have any questions.
Thanks. I think we just need to remind ourselves that we did transfer our youth service over to Connections 2 years ago, roughly, or is it longer now?
2007, I remember it well.
Oh, is it? Well, I was right. And our first port of call really has got to be with Connections, you know, because otherwise we will be wasting time if we don't know what you're doing as our youth service and Connections. Then we could start at ground zero, and it would put us back a long way, wouldn't it? So I think there is sense in that, but also the perception of what Connections delivers to us as adults and what young people actually receive or see are two different matters. So I think it's a really good starting point, personally.